out of the movement and all the movements together. Great.
Cool. Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Check out our website, thericksmithshow.com, here in Washington, D.C. at People's Actions Rise, well, from protest to power convention, their founding convention. One of the things I love about coming to these conventions are you find people in the hallways, you grab people out of the convention hall who have fascinating, incredible stories. And I was able to grab Heather Booth. She is one of the founders of Democracy Partners. Is that right? I think
Yes,
so.
that's right.
Uh, I've got her coming to sit down with me. Heather, thanks for taking time.
I'm so glad to be with you. I'm glad you're a voice for working people on the air and out to the country.
Thanks
You
so
really
much.
help inspire us and bring us together.
But I look at this convention. There's so much energy, so much potential here.
It's been inspiring. The theme of the conference is Rise Up, and people are ready to rise up, take charge, organize, and move on. And it is, as I think you know, it's the merger of three different organizations creating something new,
Yes.
saying that there's something even bigger than each of us individually for increased power.
So you look at this, and this, in my view, and you can agree or disagree, is the result of Donald J. Trump in the White House, and the attacks that we know are coming. Because I can't tell you how many people I've talked to here said, on that day, that got me up off the couch, that got me out of the out of the chair and moving and active, and out of a horrible thing could come something very good.
Well, it is true that this is both an incredibly perilous time. Terrible things will happen. Families will be ripped apart. People will die. It's also an inspiring time. And there are more people in motion on more issues, in more ways, with more creativity, with energy, and building power than there's ever been in my life.
Ever in your life? Because I know you have a pretty incredible background, pretty incredible history. In fact, they're making a movie. They've made a movie about your life, right?
They have. It's called Heather Booth Changing the World, hopefully coming to a community near you. For those who want, by the way, there's a short trailer you can find online at Heather Booth the Film. But
Very,
it's the,
very modest there. They've
well,
made a movie about you, Heather. I
well,
mean, that means that you've led a life that is worth putting on film and worth someone seeing.
well, the reason why I'm glad to tell people about the film, though it's embarrassing, honestly, to have a movie made about me, but is because I think it does help inspire people to organize and to realize that if we organize, we can change the world, but only if we organize.
And really standing together. Now, your history again it goes back to the civil rights movement, right?
I came into this kind of organizing in the civil rights movement when I was a teenager in 1960. I joined in support of the sit-ins against Woolworths, which was a store like uh, Target today or Walmart today, and it wouldn't let African Americans sit at their lunch counters in the South. Many people, certainly of my generation, know that, but maybe some younger people don't. And then in 1964, I joined with a Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and went south to Mississippi for a Freedom Summer project. Again, many people know about that project because it's when Northern students going south to shine a light on the kind of terror that poor black people lived under in Mississippi. And they know that there were three young men, Andrew Goodman, James Chaney, and Michael Schwerner, who were killed by the Klan during that summer because they were trying to register people to vote. What they may not know is that when they were looking for the bodies of those three young men, or looking for them, they found the bodies of 8 other black men whose hands had been bound or feet were chopped off or had been thrown into the river. And those murders had never even been reported. And when those bodies were found at the time, they were not investigated. That's the level of terror that people lived in Mississippi if you were poor and black.
Yeah.
I mention it now because now for many people they wonder, how will we get out of this moment? It seems so perilous, so perhaps even hopeless for many. But because people organized in Mississippi and in the civil rights movement, within a year, there was a Voting Rights Act. And we make change. We change the world when we organize. Now, we also know we have much further to go, and right now they're pushing back on
Sure.
voting rights and
But
on.
we don't have as far to go as we were then. And a couple of years ago we had done a civil rights tour because again, I don't think we learn enough about our own history,
Right.
let alone African American history. But I remember my daughter coming home and talking about what'd you learn at school today? She said, "Oh, we learned about Rosa Parks." I go, "What'd you learn?" Well, she was tired. And that's the
Oh,
extent of
God.
that entire era. That
Uh,
she sat in the bus, and she civil disobedience and took the consequences because she was tired. That's the extent of the depth at which we're teaching our kids about that era.
and part of what I'm sure you know is that Rosa Parks was very active in the NAACP. Yes,
Yep.
she was a seamstress who was tired after a day at work, but she had the courage and the training because she was part of an organization that was experienced in fighting for justice and freedom and democracy. And so she has become an incredible, iconic heroine for so many of us. But it also says that with courage, with commitment, if you join with others in organization, and if you can learn to take action and change the world.
And that's the important part coming out of this, I think, because there's a lot of people here that I've met who they're the more marginalized community. They're the poor. They're the minorities. They're folks who are finally finding a voice in this country, and I think that's exciting because if we make their lives better, I think all of our lives get better.
People's Action is such an exciting organization. The stories we've heard are so inspiring. People who lost their jobs, lost their livelihood, people who've gained back confidence and gained back dignity in their life because they bound together with others, people who've been fighting on health care. And so we stopped this repeal of health care
For now.
for now, and they'll come back again. And so we have to go back again. But we will go back because people here are part of that inspiring movement that is organizing.
Since you brought that up, and that's an important point because you go back to the November election. There are a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump because look, they're angry. Life has been tough. They've lost jobs. Their communities are struggling, and they're rightfully, in my view, angry. I just don't know that he's the right place to put hope. What happens to those people in that anger once Trump fails, and once they realize that they're the going to be the brunt, they're going to bear the brunt of all his bad policies? How do you take that anger and then maybe focus that in a more positive direction?
It's just as you're implying. It's our job to connect with those people who believe that he could lead them to a better life and to take on their concerns jointly, fighting for health care for all of us, fighting for a college education so that it doesn't bankrupt you and your family, fighting for communities in which we can breathe the air and drink the water, fighting for a better world for all of us.
Right.
Now, some of the people who voted for Donald Trump uh, actually were that 1% who really just wanted to rip off the rest of the society. And some people who voted for him did think perhaps that's a way out.
Out
Now,
of desperation.
and Trump also named who he called enemies. Many of the people here who are at the People's Action Convention or in the labor movement or in the um,
But isn't that classic divide and conquer? I mean,
absolutely.
you gave these people who honestly, they're struggling. You gave them the red meat and someone else to blame, when I would argue it's people like him that are to blame with where we are in this country. A billionaire class that has really enriched themselves at the expense of workers through lower wages and less health care and poorer working conditions and fewer jobs and all of those things.
Exactly. And that's why they use wedge issues to divide us. What we need to do is to find the issues both that unite us and point out really that it is that 1% that is pitting people against each other and that has brought the destruction of the middle class in this country. But we can rebuild it if we organize.
So what do you see coming out of this? I mean, you're a veteran of this stuff. You've seen these moments in history. What's it going to take for this to take this spark moment and actually sustain?
Well, one principle we need to know is that we're all in it together and that everyone's struggle is also our struggle. I sometimes call it the Spartacus moment. You may remember, your
Sure.
viewers may remember that Spartacus was a Roman slave who led a slave revolt. And when the Romans came after him, they couldn't find him, and they say to the other slaves, "Who is Spartacus, who will come after all of you?" And one after another, the slaves stand and say, "I am Spartacus. I am Spartacus. I am Spartacus." Just as we need to say, "I am immigrant. I am Muslim. I am union." And we all stand together. That's the first principle. The second is that we do real organizing. We go to communities, we talk to people about their real concerns and find the basis of shared concern rather than those wedge issues that divide us.
Right.
And then focus it on the people who really are causing the problem, that 1%. And then we also have to go deeper into the communities of people who've given up hope, often in inner cities, who may not even have noticed there was a financial recession because their communities had been in recession for so many years. So we need to organize, we need to mobilize, we need to be unified, and then we need to bring that into elections. We now need to electoralize, some call it, the resistance.
Exactly. Exactly. The theme of this, from protest to power, taking from that all that energy from the streets, channeling it, and well, taking over.
And I think that's what we see happening. Today we saw this beautiful stage filled with over 70 candidates who came from the grassroots, who share a common vision, who broadly are committed to fighting for a better society for all of us, and will support each other in those efforts.
Last question I've got for you then, what do you hope people take home from this? If you had your ability to say, everybody, there's one thing I want everyone to leave from this convention with, what would it be?
Well, people come here with an organization. They go back with their organization, and I believe we need to build deeper in our communities, combine together for state power, combining then for the national power, both on the issues and in elections. And if we stand together, if we organize, I do believe we will win.
Good, good, good stuff. Heather Booth, I appreciate you taking time for us. I can't wait to see the movie. I'm
Thank you,
looking
Rick.
forward
Thanks
to it.
so much.
And we'll make sure we get a link at the ricksmithshow.com of how people can see that. But Heather, thank you so much. Heather Booth, Democracy Partners. Quick break, right back after this. Stick around.
Appreciate